What's going on, YouTube? So right before we get started, don't forget to click like and subscribe, and also don't forget to check out the merch store. And yep, let's get on with the Z6 II series because this is the most popular series on this channel. We did the Nikon Z6 II versus the D810. We did the Nikon Z6 II versus the D750. We also did the Nikon Z6 II versus the Canon RP, and also we did the Nikon Z6 II versus my Canon R6, and now we have the Nikon Z6 II versus the Nikon Z7 II. And by the way, I have done the Nikon Z7 I versus the Canon R5. I'll leave a link down below, but back to the Nikon Z6 II versus the Nikon Z7 II. These two cameras right here, it's a $1,000 difference. The Nikon Z6 II costs $2,000, whereas the Nikon Z7 II costs $3,000. And many of you guys out there, the potential buyers, are wondering, is that extra $1,000 to get the Z7 II worth it? And in this video, we'll definitely look into that. And also, right before we get into some image quality tests, let's take a look at some specs. Now, the first spec we're going to take a look at is the exterior. Yeah, this is interesting. I think everyone should know this by now. It looks more or less the same. If you were in a studio and everyone had different Nikon Z6 II, Z7 II, you couldn't visually tell the difference unless you look at the actual sticker that actually says Z6 II or Z7 II. So exterior wise, it all looks the same to me. And as for the weight, it's all the same as well. And now if you take a look at behind the screen, yeah, it's EVF is the same, screen size is the same, it's a flip screen, and also it's a touch screen, and it's all the same, right? And somehow you end up owning both. I mean, it's really hard to tell the difference. And also these two cameras came out in 2021, and definitely, I mean, you get the BSI on both cameras, you get the IBIS as well, and also the dual CPU XP6. So more or less, this camera is the same. Now let's get into some, differences right quick. Now, as for the video portion of the camera, I mean, you get the line skipping on the Z7 II, but for the Z6 II, you get the oversampling, so you get a sharper image over a, soft image. But if you guys are really serious about doing video, you need to invest more. You need a Ninja, Atomos Ninja. This is the V Plus. This is the new one right here. This will cost you like $1,000 here. And also you may need a SSD. And this is all because if you want to take advantage of the 10-bit and also the 12-bit, but for the 12-bit, and I mean, you need to send it to Nikon. I think it costs like $200 to get it all set up for you. So if you are definitely doing video on the Nikon Z6 II or Z7 II, you definitely need to spend a little bit more money. But if you don't plan to get none of these external monitors or anything like that, definitely the Z6 II is a better option than the Z7 II if you're looking for that crispy, sharp, oversample 4K video. Now, in terms of the megapixels, definitely the Z7 II will give you more megapixel, whereas the Nikon Z6 II will give you 24 megapixel, of course. And the face detection, the Z7 II will give you 493, whereas the Z6 II will give you 273. So that's a thumbs up for the Nikon Z7 II. Now, in terms of ISO, 64 versus 100, there you go. Z7 II will give you cleaner ISO versus the Z6 II. So that's something for you guys to definitely take notes, of course. And now for the low light sensitivity, Z6 II is a little bit better than the Nikon Z7 II, so keep that in mind. Now, in terms of SD cards, they all take the same thing. They take SDs and CF Express. However, a lot of you guys are wondering about the frames per second and the buffering, and I will show you guys a demo with the continuous low, continuous high, and of course the continuous high plus extended. So these are those three examples I'm going to show you guys with the same exact CF Express card right here. I'm using this tough Sony Express card. Is this upside down? Yes, it is. Look at this, upside down. I'm going to show you guys the difference between the Z6 II and the Z7 II with the same exact card. Now, here's the Nikon Z7 II. Here is the Nikon Z6 II. And here is the continuous high on the Nikon Z7 II. Here is the continuous high on the Nikon Z6 II. And as you can tell, definitely the buffer on the Nikon Z6 II is a lot better than the Nikon Z7 II. Now here is the extended high plus on the Nikon Z7 II. Here is the Nikon Z6 II. Now, as you can tell, the Nikon Z6 II is a lot better than Nikon Z7 II in terms of frames per second and also the buffering. Now, let's get into some image quality tests. All right, so here's my first test. As you can see, on the right is the Z7 II and the left is the Z6 II, and this is Lightroom, and I have not done any adjustments. Same settings, except it's 26 versus 24, no biggie. We're just gonna look at the colors pretty much. And already right off the bat, with the same exact settings, you're getting, I would have to say you're getting slightly more saturation on the Z6 II versus the Z7 II, very minor. However, I did notice that the sky on the Z6 II seems to be slightly less exposed than the Z7 II, so keep that in mind. In the next scene, here is the playground scene, and I guess it's slightly more saturated, just a hair on the Z6 II versus the Z7 II. There's no big difference. In terms of sky in this part, I'd say it looks more or less the same to me. It's a cloudy day, but yeah, let me know down below what you guys think. But overall, I think the Z6 II is just a hair more saturated than the Z7 II. Now in this next scene, we're in the woods, and I guess the story remains the same. The Z6 II is just a slight hair saturated than the Z7 II, and that's just something that I noticed throughout this test. Actually, I did like 30 different tests out there, and it all just seems to be the same deal. I mean, Z6 II seems to be slightly more punchier than the Z7 II just by a hair. I think this is something that can be easily replicated in post, so not a big difference, to be quite honest. And here's the next scene, and the story remains kind of more or less the same. I'll have to say the Z6 II is just a tad more saturated than the Z7 II, but you could definitely get that in post. Also, I feel that this cloud on the Z6 II, it's a hair better than the Z7 II, but I could be totally wrong. But let me know down below what you guys think. I definitely think the Z6 II renders out the clouds a bit slightly better than the Z7 II, but that's just my opinion right there. Yeah. Now, here is the dynamic range test right here. I'm going to push out the exposure, and this is what it looks like. As you can see, the Nikon Z6 II, it turns purple. Look at that. That is pretty crazy right there. The Nikon, yeah, let it load a little bit more. These are all uncompressed files, and yeah, it's crazy. The Z7 II has better dynamic range than the Z6 II. Craziness. Look at that. The shadow turns slightly purple on the Z6 II. Here's the next test, and we're shooting in the forest again. And as you can tell, definitely the results are the same. The Z6 II will turn slightly purple, and the Z7 II seems to actually keep up. That is pretty good. That's pretty crazy right there. And here's the next scene. And I'm going to push out the exposure. And I'll have to say, yeah, the story remains the same again. The Nikon Z6 II will, lose its color when you're pushing out the dynamic range in deep darkness. And Z7 II is very impressive. I'm actually kind of shocked on Z7 II. This is crazy, guys. And for those people that follow my channel, I'm a big fan of Z6 II. This is my daily driver, but the Z7 II dynamic range, it is nuts. It is crazy good. I can't believe it. This is mind-bending right here. And here is an indoor test with artificial lighting. Pitch black just about. I'm gonna push out the exposure, and this is what it looks like. It looks like the Z6 II just slightly shifted purple just a hair. So definitely the Z7 II will retain most of the colors if you're definitely pushing pulling at night or in the darkness. All right, so here's my ISO test. And I downsampled the Nikon Z7 II. And also keep in mind, we have ISO 64 on the Z7 II. So you will get cleaner ISO, of course. But when I look through this ISO test, I noticed around like 3200, when you are downsampling to match the 24 megapixel, you will notice more detail and also slightly more details in the noise. So keep that in mind. So in conclusion, the Nikon Z6 II versus the Nikon Z7 II, I mean, both cameras, in my honest opinion, 2000 versus 3000, and just $1,000 difference. These two cameras are technically made for two different shooters. If you want the Nikon Z6 II, you are a sports and wildlife shooter. You're getting more frames per second, you're getting better buffering, you know about the blackouts, you know about the lag, so you need more chances in hitting that shot. Now, also for the Z6 II, if you're definitely going to do video internally, the Z6 II is going to give you a better option because of the oversample in 4K, except if you're doing anything with the Animals Ninja, you will line skip along with the Z7 II, even if you update to the 12-bit, of course. So that's something for you guys to know. And also, the low light autofocus is better on the Z6 II versus the Z7 II. Now for the Nikon Z7 II, you're getting better details, of course, 45 megapixel, obviously. And also you're getting better dynamic range and face detection points. So in terms of usage, I think the people that are buying the Nikon Z7 II, you are a landscape shooter. You are shooting portraits, you're shooting stills, you're shooting product photography, you're shooting astrophotography. Definitely the dynamic range is going to show in the, when you're pushing and pulling the shadows, right? So that is something for you guys to definitely take note of. But at the end of the day, it's really up to the end user on what they're planning to shoot. So there you go. There you have it, guys. Nikon Z6 II versus the Nikon Z7 II. So yeah. With all that said, thank you guys for checking me back. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely click like and subscribe. And don't forget to check out the merch store. And yep, I guess I'll see you guys in the next one, all right? Take it easy. Peace.